We are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome. We have a very, very special evening planned for you. We're going to do a hacks chat. I do these on my stream from time to time. I usually do them when we have a really big star. And so we do have a really big star to show off his work and to celebrate his career tonight. And his name is George Scribner. And we are going to, we're just going to basically just drool all over this man tonight. So I hope he's got a lot of towels to sop up all that drool. So without further ado, let's start getting some of our, it's mostly, it's kind of like the pontificator crowd here. So we got a lot of the pontificator guys. I just invited a bunch of people, seeing if they wanted to come in and hang out. So, yeah, we got Todd Mulrooney. What's up, Todd Mulrooney?
How you doing?
How you doing? We got people in the chat. I'm doing good. We got Past Master Dan. God bless you, young man. Right back at you. Anytime somebody calls me a young man, I do appreciate it. So, we got Alex in the chat. We got Brian. What's up, guys? Good evening. All looks to be fun. Yeah, this is going to be a great evening for you guys. So let's get Pedro in. Pedro is the man behind this. He's the guy that made all this happen. So we'll get into some of that. So how you be?
I'm excited, nervous, and very, very happy to be here today.
You feeling better? Better?
Yeah, dude. I'm completely over it. I felt like Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa for like about a week, but now I'm a lot better now.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. So you had a little bout with COVID, right?
With the COVID, yeah, but it was very mild. I can't say like I had like a horrible time, but I was more nervous than anything. But we're past it. I did a checkup today, COVID free. So
good. So you're not going to spread it in the chat here?
No,
because it's highly contagious. You know that.
Yes, it is. It is.
All right, we got Comic Book Bob. What's up, Bob?
What's up, dude?
What's up, man? We were having a blast.
I don't care about embarrassing myself. I'm going to ask all kinds of questions.
I want to ask one really stupid question, and I'm going to set it up right now because I know you can hear me. George can hear me. Is how do you go from like an animator to a director? Like that's what I want to know. And it's not just like any director. It's a director of a Disney feature, which was Oliver and Company. If you guys don't know, we will get into his resume as we move forward. But we got another guest here. We got Aaron Lepresti. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this event tonight.
Yes, it is an event. And when we do the professional show, usually I think Frega's a little bit of an animation guy too, but definitely Aaron is a big time Warner Brothers guy, a Disney guy. So pretty cool to have him on and prepare those questions, Aaron.
Oh, they're prepared.
All right, man. We got Clint Helinski. What's up, Clint?
What's up, Art? Happy Friday to everybody. I'm super stoked about tonight. This is going to be very cool. I'm going to ask dumb questions too, but I just want to hear everything about Disney animation. Like, we all grew up with it, and it's going to be really cool to just listen to somebody who like had his whole career in that, and I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, for me, I started off thinking I was going to be an animator. You know, when I was young, and Uncle Walt was on TV every week, and he would talk about how amazing it was, and then I realized I wasn't good enough.
I don't know about that.
It's always a fun realization to come to.
It's a lot of work, man. It's not just one image. It's like a million images. Like that looks daunting.
You gotta have the right personality, I think. I mean, just the patience. I did a really short, 10-second thing in an animation class at USC, and by the time I was done, I was like, it was like 130 some drawings or whatever for 10 or 20 seconds. And I was like, how could you do this for an entire movie? It's just like, just brutal.
It is
That
brutal,
cured
man.
me of my desire to be an animator, but not my desire to enjoy good animation. So
Exactly. So we got Joe Suntag. What's up, Joe?
What's going on, guys? How you doing? Good to see
Yeah.
you all. And
See
I'll
you
probably be
all.
the one that's the most quiet because I've got I won't be here as long as everybody else. So I'm just going to enjoy the show and listen to all the information and stories and just be very entertained.
Yeah, Joe's just going to do a lot of drooling, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be some drooling for this man right here. Are you ready, George? We're gonna bop you in here. So this is the man of the hour. This is George Scribner. So Disney animator director. Yes. It looks like
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you for making time to be on our little humble YouTube show here. And like I said earlier, we are all big fans, and not just of animation, but of people like yourself, like animators that do this. I have a few friends that do this for a living. I know like the Bancroft brothers, Tony and Tom, and I know a couple other guys. And I'm always in awe of how humble they are and how hardworking they are, because like in comic books, we got one still image that we're responsible for, maybe 6 of those per page. But you guys have hundreds and hundreds of drawings that you're responsible for to bring one of these features together. So always appreciate the amount of work and time that it goes into creating these things. So I'm not really sure where to start. I'm not really.
You had your crazy question you wanted to ask, so go for it, man.
Well, I kind of always feel like we should go like time, like how did you start? When did you start? All that kind of stuff. So maybe we should give
Origin stories. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, we should give an introduction before I go. How did you become a director of a major Disney franchise? How did it start for you, George? What were your lofty goals going into the art profession? I know that most of us started off in one direction and kind of detoured into another with our careers. So it'll be interesting to see how you started.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and really thanks to all of you. It's really kind words. I do appreciate it.
Oh, no.
Some of this I went over. Pedro, I met in Panama. I was born and raised in Panama. It's a long story. My father moved there after World War II. And I always drew as a kid. I went to schools in the former Canal Zone. And I majored in film. I went to Emerson College and majored in film. I mean, I drew and painted, but it wasn't like something that was all the time. And I'd finished school, finished college, went back to Panama I majored in film, and I was editing commercials for a small commercial house in Panama, mostly Spanish spots. And I was sort of looking to move back to the States for a lot of personal and professional reasons, and read an article in a magazine called Filmmakers Newsletter. I have no idea if it's even around today, but that Disney was looking for artists to train, that the 9 old men, the generation that had started with Walt, they were retiring and they wanted to train, they were looking to train a new generation of artists. And, it's one of those moments, I wish I knew the reason. It's like a moment of epiphany, like, wow, you know what? I had directed theater, I'd acted in it, I could draw, and I majored in film. And it was like one of these, well, this might be an interesting career and a way to learn a trade, move back to the States, get into a trade, and just sort of see where it goes. It wasn't like I had visions of directing or anything. I was just, boy, if I can get into this and start this, I have nothing to lose. I was 25, so I sent a portfolio from Panama. They sent a nice letter. I wrote them, what are you looking for? They sent a nice letter back with a little brochure. We're looking for the human figure in loose sketches, the human figure in action, gesture drawings and stuff. Of course, I misinterpreted the entire thing and sent these unbelievably stiff drawings of anatomical figures. Like, I memorized every bone. I mean, I just completely misread it. Smooth. I sent them the portfolio. They very kindly wrote back about a month later. Wow, nice try. If you write us again, we're going to call security. No, they didn't. Say they wrote back.
Hey, George, I have a few of those as well from Disney.
Yeah. Like, please don't park in our towels again, okay? And I decided, you know what? They were really nice. They were like, wow, great effort. This was in a letter. Wow, talk about dating myself. But
Yeah.
what we're looking for is this. And it was like, wow, you know what? I completely missed it. But I don't care. I'm moving. It's time to try this. I have nothing to lose. I moved to Los Angeles, started taking live drawing classes at night. You know what? If that's what I have to learn, because it was sort of this adage and the thing, if you can draw the human figure, you can draw anything.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hard lesson to learn because it really was a lot of work doing these live drawing classes at night. I started just working. My first job in the industry was painting cells for Hanna-Barbera in a warehouse in the San Fernando Valley. Like,
Nice.
hey, and I was happy to have it. Like, hey, man, I can get tires for my VW. This is awesome.
Did they at least have air conditioning in that warehouse?
No,
Oh,
I thought as much.
it was, yeah, I'm sorry, whoever asked, forgive me, but it was like these swamp coolers, which, you know, they generally work. But anyway, at any rate, I
It was literally a
started
sweat.
picking up work. I got a job at Hanna-Barbera as in-betweener and just sort of slowly worked my way up. Started looking for mentors, animation mentors locally. One was a guy named Benny Washam who had worked at Warner Brothers years and years ago. And he was kind enough to issue me a scene of animation, and I just started learning it. I wish there was some like, man, I knew when I was in Panama, I'm going to be a director. You know, these are all baby steps, and you, for me, the lesson was you just do as good a job as you can along the way. In the meantime, I started to make long-winded, but I'll cut this.
No. I want to ask you because I mean, I grew up on the Hanna-Barbera cartoons and stuff like that. What were some of the cartoons you worked on as an in-betweener?
At the time, it would have been Flintstones or Jaina. Eventually, I became an animator there because they started a feature unit, and I could draw pretty well. I was a pretty strong draftsman, and I started learning from an animator. These were animators that worked at Disney who had left Disney for one reason or another, specifically a man named Hal Ambro, who I was finally given an opportunity. All right, great. We have a feature unit. We're doing a movie called Heidi's Song.
Okay.
And, you know, I was able to get on it. I was very appreciative, like, awesome. And this guy would go over, he'd roll through my drawings. Again, this is all traditional, just, you know, paper and pencil. He'd roll through the drawings and point out a bunch of stuff. I had, man, really good teachers, and I was open to them. And I asked a million questions. And all the while, I kept submitting work to Disney. So 2 or 3 times, I'd submit another portfolio.
I have to ask you because, like I said, I'm just going to geek out and drool all over. So even when you're working at Hanna-Barbera, like Disney is the brass ring, right? Like, so a lot of you guys aspired to get some real. I don't know if it's real money. I don't know. I would assume the money would be better. But
No,
the
the money was. I'm sorry to interrupt. The money was. I took a pay cut
to go to Disney?
So it was the prestige.
I mentioned this to Pedro. We did a in Panama that you want to work here. This is the salary. And I said to Pedro, you know, I know this sounds like, dude, I really wanted to be there but I knew I'd get better. There were going to be better people than me. And there were a lot better. And it would make my work, it would improve my work. And I was happy to make that trade because I knew long term, wow, to have Disney, to be a Disney animator, to have that on a portfolio or a resume. And I wasn't even that cynical about it. It was more like, wow, you know, this is really an opportunity. And wow, just one thing led to the next.
Okay, so it was more just opportunity to work with maybe a higher caliber of talent. Yeah.
And one of the Eric Larson, one of the 9 old men, was still mentoring us. We were in our mid-20s. There were a whole batch of us who were starting. And
well, Frank and Ollie didn't they work on Oliver and Company as well? So they were No, they did. Oh,
they were writing their book at the time, The Illusion of Life. And we actually screened Oliver and Company for them, for him, Frank and Ollie, Milt Call passed away. I'm trying to think of Eric Larson, a couple Ward Kimball, But no, these men had retired pretty much.
Yeah, I got to meet Ward Kimball at San Diego Comic-Con one year. Fantastic, man. Here's that illusion.
Oh, nice.
Let me see if I can do this without bopping myself
Yeah.
out again. Oh, I just.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this
Nice.
is a crazy good book, and just the cover too. It's this is, I think, just major scan shot. Like it just scans all the way around.
I love that dude.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It was really considered like a primer for animated.
Yeah, this is a great book, man. I still go back on it every once in a while. And there's a great documentary. I think it's on Disney Plus right now. Frank and Ollie. And I did think that they talked about Oliver and Company in that, but maybe not.
No, they might have. I just don't. They didn't work on it. We consulted with them.
Okay.
During the making of it, and they were kind enough to come in and give us story suggestions, which were really helpful.
Maybe they just used it as an example because there's a scene. Forgive me, I don't remember the lead girl, little girl character, but she's talking about to the cat that she's not going to be adopted.
Yeah, Jenny. Correct.
Jenny, yeah, and they brought that up as a great example of like emoting character and all that stuff. And just thinking about it right now, I'm getting chills because it's so fantastic. But like I said, I'm just geeking out. I'll let you keep going. You know, so you're from Hanna-Barbera. You're going into Disney to try to get some better training.
Yeah, I finally got in on I think my fourth try. I just kept submitting portfolios. I mean, talk about just, the world belongs to the dumb and the stubborn.
Exactly.
Like, there's a lot of talented people. You just kind of not give up. I don't know.
That's the key. That's the key, though. Not giving up, right?
It is. It sounds unbelievably hackneyed and trite, but
yeah,
it's true. It is true because there's people who are still way better than I am, and we gave up for whatever reasons. Anyway, I started as a character animator on the Black Cauldron.
Oh yes,
and
I have so many questions about that movie.
Spent about a year on it as a character animator, mostly on the character of Taryn, because I could draw pretty well. I was a pretty strong draftsman, like I said, so I was able to get close-ups of.
Speaking about the Black Cauldron, George, can you please explain like the most difficult scene? Because I remember that anecdote. Like the most difficult scene for you was like animating a dead guy, right?
Do you all remember the character of Gurgi?
Yeah.
So this is like ancient history, but I was given a scene that was about 70 feet long, 70 feet. Aaron, you can help me with this. I don't know. It's 20 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever.
Yeah.
I forgot what the formula is, but
so
Gurgi laying on his back.
Yeah.
And he's either, I forgot, whether unconscious or passed away. And all I could do was animate the hair. really, this is okay, fine, I'll animate. It was a small wind or a very gentle wind blowing on him, and okay, I'll animate this scene. Thank you very much. It's a business, and I got great scenes, and I got scenes like that.
Yeah,
you learn. You learn from everything.
George, did you know Stan Green at all?
Boy, it sounds really familiar, Aaron. Wow. You know what? My memory is like a perro now. It's like a dog.
I took some classes from him years ago. I'm up here in Portland, Oregon, and he was teaching at Portland State when I was in college. So that would have been early 80s. And he was an older Disney animator, worked on the, like the 50s and 60s stuff. And I just remember you brought up, animating the hair. And he used to always complain that he was a really good figure artist and that he always got to draw the people, but he always really wanted to draw the the creatures or the animals or the fun characters. But he said, as he put it, he always got stuck drawing the people because he was good at it, like Prince Charming and things like that. When he really wanted to be drawing the dragon or something.
They're the most difficult things to do because you can't make a mistake. You can cheat a secondary, looser design character. I mean, we're talking about traditional work now with CG. Man, it's so much better now. But I mean, to draw a human character was really the pencil width. For you all do comics, you all understand this. If a line is slightly off, or and you're animating on, if you're on ones, that's 24 drawings in a second, or twos and ones, average 18 drawings a second. Thank God I got into animation, because people who do cleanup and who are really good at it, the process of cleaning up animators' roughs, my heart went out to them, and I owe them my life to be able to, as a rough animator, be able to pass off scenes of animation with partials in them, or breakdowns, and otherwise
that's something that I really love about the old Disney cartoons. My daughter's 3 years old, so we introduced her to a lot of the old classic 101 Dalmatians, and the traditional kind of hand-drawn animation. And I love actually watching those movies, because you can see the roughness in some of the lines and some of the line work, and there's something I really enjoy about that as an artist, because everything now just is so clean, it's so perfect. It looks great, but looking at some of those older cartoons back in the day, and just knowing how it was drawn and painstakingly, a drawing per second, whatever, it's really cool to see that kind of stuff still. I'm glad that it still exists, and you are able to watch it nowadays. And I dig it. I really dig that kind of, there's something very special about it.
It has an energy to it, because there's a rawness to the line. So it's just alive. You clean a line up, and yes, it's more polished, and you can paint it because you need it to paint on it. But a rough, we used to kid, as animators, like, wow, wouldn't it be great if you could do a feature with just the animators' roughs? And Ralph Bakshi,
I would love that.
To his credit, Ralph Bakshi, and which one of them? Before I started with him, he did a whole sequence set to a Chuck Berry song that's just great.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know if anybody remembers that, because he ran out of money. Sequence.
What always really impressed me about the hand-drawn art is just the ability to capture the expressions and the emotions and the characters when you're telling the story, and just how it would look. So just to sit there and to draw the expression of someone's face as their eyes are getting big, or they're doing a smile, or just any of the caricatures like the characters would have back in the day, is just I still look at those old movies, and I'm so extremely impressed by the animators back in the day for doing that.
There's this Bakshi movie. I can't really say the name because we'll get struck.
Is it Seaskin?
Yeah, exactly. and then there's like a chalk animation of a lady which is married to a cockroach. And he used that medium to basically do rough animation on screen, and it's amazing just because of that fact. So I totally get, like, when you see like roughs, for example, like the roughs on Tarzan.
Yeah,
like that movie, like what Glenn Keane was doing on the roughs, it's lost on the cleanup.
Right.
So it's something that I think that's one of the things that maybe why animators are not that famous, is a lot of the work is lost through the process. But
I think that, and I don't think the corporation really wants, like the company want to really promote the talent to that degree, because once artists get a little bit of adulation, it goes right to our head. We get crazy. And the next thing you know, we want actually living wages and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right.
That's
exactly.
like was it Vince McMahon said the best secret about running a business is never let your talent know how important they are to it.
Yeah, we have John Celestri here. It's another
Woo!
great animator. Woo. Oh yeah.
Yep. Got them all coming in now.
How you doing, John?
George, I was
Hello.
I was told that, I think specifically in the 60s, where Disney was trying to save money because maybe the movies weren't making quite as much money, that they were scanning the pencil animation or copying it directly onto the cells and not inking it to save money. Was that something that you're familiar with, or you experienced at all when you got in there finally? Were they still doing any of that?
To be honest with you, I am not sure if it was a money issue or just a leap or a change in the look. That here was a fresh way of to sort of pertinent to what we're talking about here.
Right.
The line was a little rougher, and it had an energy to it because it wasn't polished and inked.
Like Robin Hood comes to mind.
Yeah, correct. And we adopted that in Oliver and Company because we wanted that sort of rough, or edgy, for lack of a better word.
Well, I was going to ask you then, so when you have a cleanup artist and it's more edgy, is that cleanup artist giving that edge, or is this right from the animator? Like this is a scan straight from the animator's original drawing?
No. What I'm getting at is once the cleanup person finishes, there's sort of like a fork. You could either ink it or you could Xerox it. If you Xeroxed it, the cleanup line relative to the ink line would still be a little bit very subtle,
Like
a
a
little
ghost.
bit rougher. Rougher
Right.
is too broad a word, but it would have a hand-drawn feel to it versus ink, which would have a very polished, thick and thin line. It's almost like vector versus bitmapped.
Hey,
Mhm.
Art, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they back in like right around the late '80s, early '90s? Didn't Marvel go to like where they would Xerox the artwork?
Yeah,
so it had like a rougher feel to it.
Yeah, they started cutting out the inker, but I do know that they did that for cut costs, like to cut costs. But the reason I asked, just to back on the question, George, is that like when you watch like 101 Dalmatians or some of these ones that are obviously penciled, you can still kind of see some underdrawing. You can
Exactly,
see
yeah.
structure stuff. With the drawing. That's why I was wondering if what we were seeing was the actual animator's drawing, or if that was still cleanup, or maybe a combination of both.
No, it was cleanup, but
Maybe they didn't erase some of the lines.
they probably went for, and we did it on Oliver and Company. What I'm getting at is that even the cleanup line from the assistants, when it's Xeroxed, is still going to have imperfections to it because it's a hand-drawn line.
Mhm.
If you ink it, as you guys do in comics, forgive me, I'm really out of my depth here, but it just has an entirely different feel to it. So
Yeah.
what translates on screen is a hand-drawn. You get the closest that you're going to get to that artist because it's just a Xerox, and the Xerox has imperfections.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be absolute one-to-one with whatever that line is, and that's going to give it a look. And it really helped 101 Dalmatians a lot. I think it gave it at the time. I'm pretty sure they did it for stylistic reasons because it gave it a completely different feel and look than the inked features before it.
Yeah, I liked it. I
Yeah,
thought
so did I.
it was very cool. Yeah, I like both actually, but I do like experimental stuff and like 101 Dalmatians and even like Robin Hood. You can kind of there's kinetic, there's like energy to that line that when you do go over it with ink, it kind of tightens it up. It's almost like it's slightly out of focus, and then when you ink it, it tightens up the focus a little bit. We have
like adding line weights.
Yeah, well, with the pencil, sometimes like you can see side of pencil stuff, or if the pencil's like getting a little duller, so there is some expression in the line, at least that I've seen in some of these features. But yeah, Neon says Xeroxed, yes. So one thing about Xerox stuff too, like I have this, I want to show this. This is one of my prized possessions. Speaking of like ink line versus, we get a lot of reflection here, but this is from Oliver and Company. So I collect animation cells, and the one thing about like animation cells that have been Xerox versus that are hand inked, like the older ones, is the Xerox will actually deteriorate over time. So it'll actually fade on the acetate. I don't know if it's acetate, but whatever the plastic is.
It used to be acetate, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really sad for collectors because the stuff just doesn't quite hold up as well. Especially some of the older Warner Brothers stuff I have. Like I have some Grinch stuff and things like that. And the pencil line is
nice.
all gone. Yeah, that Xerox line. But okay, so let's kind of get back into the trajectory of your career, George. So you're starting at Disney. You're working on Black Cauldron. You're kind of who were you saying that you were hanging out with? Was it Eric Larson, or who was your mentor when you first?
There were several. One was an animator, a German. He was Andreas Deja, Deja.
Oh shit, dude! Keep going.
I would bring my drawings to him, and he would go over and roll through them. And he was a fantastic draftsman, which went back to my point about wanting to work somewhere where there were just going to be better people. And he was like a living, breathing example at the end of my hall on the lot. And I would finish a scene. I'd take it to him. What do you think of this? He'd check the charts and look over each drawing, and he was phenomenal. He was him, and then Eric Larson was, as I said earlier, one of the 9 old men, and you could take your scene up to him, and he would roll through them as well. And you'd show it to other animators. You'd do a script. You do a pencil test.
Jafar.
Yeah, let me close the window. Keep going, George.
Yeah, I was about to say close the blinds.
Yeah, close the blinds.
Close the blinds, man. It's getting on the way, Art. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Face is melting.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going, George. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
Even though you're not on TV, we can see you, George, or we can hear you.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Anyway, I spent a year and a half as a character animator on Cauldron.
Oh yeah,
And
Cauldron.
Befriended a guy named Pete Young, a story person who
So cool.
I got to know very, very well. And because I directed theater in Panama, I really had a predilection for, I want to get into story. It was a category, how do I put this? It was a separate category than character animation. And it was the group of people who would help the directors basically flesh out the story. And at the time it was story sketches. Now it's all done on Adobe Photoshop and you're importing into After Effects. And at the time it was hand drawn. Then you posted, so the sketches were about this big. You know what? I have a pad of what we used to draw. Hold on. I still have one of these pads. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
This is a story sketch pad. And we're using Stabilo pencils or loose pencils. I got into story. This guy sort of befriended me and, hey, here's an opportunity to get into story. And I started helping him. And right around that time, talk about just the synchronicity of life or whatever, the management changed. Ron Miller was replaced by Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner and Roy Disney. And they wanted to change things up. They held a gong show, for lack of a better way to put it. Well, they actually did. And they were looking for ideas for features. And the person who had befriended me, this guy, Pete Young, I was just starting. I didn't go. He went and he pitched this idea for Oliver and Company to do a version of Oliver Twist with animals in New York City. And they go, great. Apparently, Jeffrey Katzenberg had always wanted to do this property as either live action or animation. So when it popped up, when this guy Pete pitched it, and in that same meeting, Mermaid was pitched, and so was Rescues Down Under, and all three more or less were greenlit. So this was the very, very beginnings of I heard some of you talking earlier about the Waking Sleeping Beauty, sort of the second, what they call the second
Renaissance
age. It was like a second era. I sort of believe we're into the third or fourth now, but at the time. And I started working with this guy, Pete Young, on story. And Roy Disney joined us. He wanted to be part of this. He started helping us develop this story. And it was to him that I owe the fact that I became an animation director. He gave me the opportunity, right place at the right time. Again, never planned this. Little boy from Panama. Wow, really?
George is just throwing out all these names that I'm just.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm here with Tom.
Got questions about that one. Got questions about this.
And then I went water skiing with Michael Eisner. And then
But
so
no, that's like I was just like going over some of the details about Oliver and Company, about how like it was the first animated film to hit $100 million.
Wow.
And just then the re-release of it and everything, and then also the fact that a lot of critics panned it for some reason.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Like Siskel and Ebert, man, they took a crap on that movie, and I was like, I remember actually my mom taking me to see that film, and I was like, how the hell are you gonna crap on this?
Yeah, it was one of my daughter and my favorite to watch together. So that's a testament. Who cares what those guys say?
Yeah. Never trust the critics is what I say.
I have a hard time watching it because I'm like, why did I approve that scene? How did I let that one go? Oh my God, why didn't we go to ones? I guess we did.
We were also like talking about, just briefly talking about the cast, like the voice cast, and it's like a mix of like young and like current Hollywood and then old Hollywood.
That was really, and I have to give him credit, but that was Jeffrey Katzenberg pushing us to hey, we can get the best. Let's go out and get some of these really rock stars, as he put it, because they're going to add, when we go to brand this and we go to sell this and we go to release this. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm in my early 30s and I'm interviewing. No, what am I saying? I told Pedro this, we're in Panama. I'm doing an interview with Billy Joel, and I'm sitting in a car in Glendale at 10 o'clock at night. It's 1 in the morning in New York, and he's reading pages for Dodger, and I'm reading Oliver on a phone that looks like a shoe. It's just weird. It's just the strangest thing. Well, he was great, and he was.
At any point, did you
He
just
went
like,
down
can
the
you get a
part that
couple?
wasn't good. I could have fought this, but he was great. It's just one example of, there's a reason people who are really good are really good.
Yeah.
Bob, who else is in the cast there?
Oh, dude, it's a freaking murderer's row, man. It's got Joey Lawrence when he was young, but you got Billy Joel, Cheech Marin, a lot of character actors like Roscoe Lee Brown, Richard Mulligan. You remember Richard Mulligan?
Oh yeah.
Dom was-
Dom DeLuise, Robert Loggia, Bette Midler. Was it Frank Welker, the guy who does the voice for Optimus Prime?
Right. He was a character. Right.
There was a whole bunch of guys. It's just like I'm just going through this cast, and it's like, holy crap, man! Victor Diamata.
Like everybody on that list had long careers. They were very talented individuals. It was a very cool cast.
George, were you involved at all in casting the movie, or was that kind of? Oh, so you're actively involved in that as well. Okay.
Everybody read. Bet read. Bet. I call her Bet. Bette Midler read. She was like, no, you know what? You're the director. What do you give me some pages? I read against her. Great. Poodle. Georgette.
I forgot Mel Blanc did some stuff in that.
I don't remember that.
I think he was brought in to do like some like the filler background stuff or something like that.
We might have done ADR at the end when we would do like group loops and stuff. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
No,
Eric,
everybody. I cast everybody.
Yeah, Eric, that's true, man. I got mixed up. Welker is Megatron because Megatron's cooler than Optimus Prime.
And what we would say to them was, and it wasn't cynical or anything, but look, 25 years from now, your kids will be watching this film, and there's a lifespan to these films. These are not, in 2-3 years. These are part of the Disney vault. There's a legacy here, and again, not making it up, but the actual fact. And Billy Joel, boy, he was on board. Everybody was really very easy to work with. Especially
they re-released it like in like the mid 90s, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
And then it was released on DVD. It took a long time to hit DVD, didn't it? To like early 2000s.
One of the larger films, Mermaid and Rescuers, followed by Hercules and Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King. These were like the tent poles. I sort of look at it as it was a training ground for a lot of people. And I'm convinced, I had it told to me that if Oliver had not done well, I'm not sure they would have shut the studio because there was a lot of push to, we're done.
A lot of push to go to just live action.
We could live off the vault.
Yeah.
It was a huge labor expense, the overhead, et cetera, et cetera. And Roy Disney, to his credit, was like, that's just not going to happen.
Were you guys still animated the original Disney studio, or were you was the new studio that's like across the way? Was that already built at the time with the big, Mickey magic hat?
They moved everybody off the lot because they wanted to bring live action people into the main building on the lot, which is the animation building. It didn't go over very well, and they moved us into these warehouses in Glendale across from Walt Disney Imagineering, which is a couple miles from the studio. Not a happy group. And eventually what ended up happening was these movies started to make money, and they finally, you know what, we need to bring them back onto the lot. We'll build a building for them. But it wasn't immediate.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Oliver, like I said, the first animated film to make over $100 million, that was a big part of why they went, okay, well, we're going to start making animated films again, and we're going to start doing them annually.
Yeah. If I can take credit for it, or the team that did this film, it's nice to be able to think we helped keep this medium alive.
Especially
Mhm.
after the turmoil that plagued the Black Cauldron.
Yeah, I didn't do very well, and Great Mouse did, okay numbers, but it
Mhm.
really wasn't until Oliver came out. Oliver came out against Land Before Time, and both movies did pretty well.
Yeah.
And there was like this sort of awareness, like, wait a minute, not only do the films do well, but the ancillary, the plush, the consumer products, the books, the music, everybody, it spreads way more. So these animated films are like, they're little jewels. For the
Mhm.
company, they have an enormous sort of half-life.
And it was didn't Bluth actually left in the middle of the making of the Black Cauldron to create his studio, right?
Yes, I think it was during Fox and the Hound that
Fox
he
and the
had.
Hound, yeah.
I think it was a little bit earlier, but yes, he picked up and
Just basically bailed.
it was a big deal. He took a lot of really good animators with him to Ireland to make these films.
Did you ever have a lunch with him and say, "Hey, George, I'm doing this thing on the side here. I'll pay you
It was a
to
completely
Disney."
different era. It was I hadn't even moved to Los Angeles, or I was just moving there when they were working on Fox and the Hound.
Okay.
So it was earlier than Oliver and Company.
So is it too early? Is it too early to ask the Ralph Bakshi question?
Never
I
too
think it's time.
Okay. I just want to know what your experience was, but how did you end up working with Bakshi? Were you at, so that was before you went to Disney, right? Between Hanna-Barbera and.
That's correct.
So yeah, talk a little bit about that experience with Ralph Bakshi, because of both the films you worked on, American Pop and Heavy Metal, I think probably, I know everybody's seen Heavy Metal, but American Pop when I was younger was one of my favorite animated films when it came out, because it was interesting. I thought that it would take a live action type scenario but do it as animation. So I'm just curious what your experiences were with him or working with him.
For about 5 years, as I indicated earlier, I worked at various houses before I got to Disney. Ralph was one of them. I was in my mid-20s, and there was an ad in Variety that Ralph Bakshi was looking for artists that he would train to work on a movie, The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He did. He wanted to do The Lord of the Rings with Saul Bass. He managed to get the rights to it. And 200 of us, 300 of us, it was like the break of a lifetime. I went from painting cells at Hanna-Barbera, which was okay. I got the tires on my VW. Okay.
Important.
Wow, I get a chance. I submitted a portfolio and I got in. I got a chance to work with Ralph Bakshi. I was very grateful. Again, this is, I wasn't working at Disney, and I figured I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn something from this guy. It was he reached out to young artists because a lot of the established artists and animators in Los Angeles, this is what I heard at the time, just didn't want to work with the guy. They didn't like his films. They were put off by the profanity, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling was, wow, I'm only going to learn from this guy. And plus it was like, there wasn't a lot of work. There was Fox and the Hound at that time. There's a lot of work now. But at the time, there wasn't a lot of work. You just take what's kind of available. And I spent 3 years with him working on first, Lord of the Rings, then Rock Odyssey, American Pop. It was, I liked him. He was a larger than life, literally, figuratively, literally, he's a big guy. He would call me Larry. Hey, Larry.
I got a question.
He remembered my name, so I was Larry.
Was it always consistently Larry, or did your name change?
That's a good question. I think it was consistently Larry. I don't know. Fine.
That's when you do the
Pay me
Disney
money,
name
know.
tag thing, right? It's like, no, it's George.
It wasn't worth it.
It wasn't worth it.
Why bother?
I've had jobs like that. Yeah, you just kind of go with the flow and keep your head down, do the work.
You take the attitude you're going to learn from whatever experience you're in, and I did, and I learned. There were some top Irv Spence. There were some great animators working on it. I sort of always took the attitude, well, you know what
I have a
what
question.
can I get from this? Yeah.
As a director, like in a studio system, sometimes they do a string of movies and they have the same sort of style. They look alike. There's not really much that sets them apart stylistically. Then all of a sudden you get like Atlantis, and it's such a different style. As a director, do you get to choose, like, hey, I want to do something a little different, a little more stylistic? Or is it sort of set upon you which direction you're going to go?
No, you reach a consent. This is like a bland answer. It's not meant to be, but there's you the strength of working at Disney or Pixar or the houses, Blue Sky or whatever. You're only as good as the team you're with. So there's a feeling that we've done this look before. Let's try something new. You bring in concept artists at the beginning of every film. We did it on Lion King. Mermaid did it. Atlantis did it. And you're looking for a slightly different look within sort of the archetype of Disney character animation. There's a sort of a house look, but within that, there was certainly an effort to try and vary the look between films. So that's part of
style differentiations, or just like to keep within that house look you're saying, but like just stylized subtly.
Yeah, you bring different artists in to do different pieces of concept art, and it'd be wildly different. And you'd point at, wow, that would be really good for this movie. I forget who it was that they ended up with on Little Mermaid, and you would, it could vary. You as a director could go to, let's say, Jeffrey Katzenberg at the time, who was running the film division, and go, hey, this is the look I want. I was on a movie called Dinosaur for a while, and there was an artist in Montana named Doug Henderson, who was doing just gorgeous line drawings of the entire range of dinosaurs, from birds to amphibians to and I pointed out and go, that's the look I want. And they were like, great, fine, we'll go in that direction.
Yeah, some of my favorite stuff is just like, I get all the Disney, behind the scenes animation books and stuff like that. And one of my favorite is just from Lion King. I can't remember the artist, and I can't believe this because he's one of my favorites. He's the Lilo and Stitch guy, and he did some concepts, and I think he did a lot of the storyboards for Lion King. Chris Sanders, yeah. And oh my gosh, I love that. I can see why a lot of those style guys, or just his style didn't really fly, in the earlier films. But I'm so glad that he actually got a moment to shine with that Lilo and Stitch, because man, his style is, for me, it's infectious, man. It's like it's so weight gravity heavy, like everything. Like the women have thick ankles. Like, it's so contrary to like the way you would draw things, where it would be weighted, like the guys with that big barrel chest and stuff. Everything he does is kind of weighted low. You know what I mean? Like, instead of narrowing at the wrist, it gets thick, and ankles and stuff like that. And God, it's just some of my favorite stuff.
He could do it all. He's just one of these. Wow. Again, going back to, there's always somebody better. And he was just, his story sense, his animation sense, his design sense. It was just, you want somebody like that working with you. I had a producer on Oliver who I'm still friendly with today, and she would say, I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I just want to be surrounded. I thought, that's a good way to put it. It's glib, but the point, you want to be surrounded by people who are smart, because they're better at that. Why hire them? I don't want to do it. I'm working on a project now in Vancouver. I'm continuing to direct animation. It's a small project for a theme, for an attraction. I'm looking for a character designer. I can design them, and I've roughed these ideas out, but they need to be looked at by somebody else. I need somebody to go, hey, you know what? Have you thought of this? I didn't do that. That's great. Let's go that direction.
Did you find that hard to do, or were you always wired that way, where you could see what your limitations are, or that you always looked for like something outside of the wheelhouse? You know what I mean? Like there's what I can do, but then there's what this guy can do, and it might be better. Were you always wired like that, or did you learn that over time?
A little bit of both. I would say I was probably more open-minded about it, and also just realize, if you're honest with yourself, that person's way better than you are.
I'm not that honest.
It's hard to be that honest, isn't it?
I think I'm still at that, like, no, I can do it all. I'm not going to go outside of myself. Or anything.
I have some medication for you.
Is it good? I'll give you my number. Does it work?
No, I'm not saying it's easy. There's an ego, like, hey, man, I thought I was pretty damn good. ¿Qué pasó? Like, hey, man.
Sorry.
You just have to, I don't know, you have to just know.
So when you would sit and you talked about how you like learn from these guys, like would you guys just sit and have like paper out or like however you were drawing and like you would work a drawing and they would work different angles or show
Absolutely.
you like a tweak, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Very hands-on.
One, you would hire a concept guy to go out. Look, this is sort of the look we're looking for. We've hired you because you have a very defined look. Sid Mead, whatever. Okay, bring us back something. And other times you'd come in and then you'd maybe sit down at a room and everybody, there is kind of like a shorthand to everyone's on these and you're just drawing. You're not even talking. Everyone's just drawing and you're exchanging drawings. Well, what if we did this? What if we did this? So there's a shorthand to it. And it's the reason these films, I think, do as well as they do. They're visual feasts because the people who are creating are visual artists. And all of you know this. You all draw. Aaron, you know this. You're bettering the work. Have you thought about this? There was a gag somebody came up with of a dinosaur swallowing a lemur. Like, wow, who thought of that? This is awesome. You start drawing it, and it's like directing. Instead of talking to an animator, you sit there and do thumbnails. You know, what I'm looking for is this and this and this. I'd act it out, and then that animator would bring back a series of thumbnails, like keys. Like, do you want this? Do you want this? There's a shorthand to it.
That's my favorite part of working with people. I'm working with a writer now, Joe Fulton. And so, we use the camera like, StreamYards like this, and we just brainstorm. And so while we're talking story, I'm just jotting out the pages. You know what I mean? And I find it real beneficiary. Like you can kind of edit and you can kind of organically create it as you go, but everything feels like it's more substantial. It feels more like it's you're going to use it versus like staying in your head and kind of drawing on your own. For me, like working with somebody like that is really good because then I can kind of, if it doesn't work, we can fix it. We can change it, as we're going along.
By the way, I don't think we planned this. All of us draw, so we just automatically
did it.
We just go to paper and pencil. I don't think any of you sit there and go, "Oh, how am I going to communicate this?" But no, we just sort of grab. Here, this is what I'm thinking of, or the picture is 1,000 words. It's true. A screenplay, everyone's got an idea in their head, but until you start. Okay.
Well, is there some competition involved there too? Because I know artists have egos, and it's like everybody wants to outdraw the other guy. Was there some of that kind of stuff in those kind of sessions?
Competition? No way.
When you were talking a little bit earlier about working within the house style, but still giving it some personality, it made me think in terms of the old Warner Brothers cartoons where. You have, say, someone like Chuck Jones or Friz Freeling or Bob McKimson or something like that. They would all draw Bugs Bunny. They all were uniquely their own, but they still fit within that framework. How much freedom did you have to work around the edges in terms of bringing? And I'm talking about when you were back in the 70s and stuff, before they really Disney started going with, really unique looking styles for every movie. How much freedom did you have to kind of push the boundaries of, okay, this is a Disney framework, but I'd really like to go a little bit more stylized like this. Was there anybody sort of like holding the reins and going, no, you can't go that far? Or
No, not really. If it was strong enough and conveyed great design, it was generally just accepted. You all just knew, wow, that's the direction to go in. I'll give you an example. The beginning of Lion King. I spent a year on it. We can get into that later if you guys want, but I spent a year on it. And Pumbaa was originally an elephant, a small little elephant. And because of the research I'd been doing on it, I was the first director on it. I suggested, let's make him a warthog. It'd be a lot more, it's uglier, a lot more, just cuter. It's going to have a lot more personality as a warthog. And it was just sort of this realization, wow, that's just a much more interesting way to go. And
and then the hot tub scene came up, and
right. I believe we cut that, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was in the Lion King 1.5 or something. Like there were the bubbles or whatever, like in the sauna, and then Pumbaa gets out of the
yeah, I never saw it, but
water, and then all the bubbles go away, and then you realize that the reason there were bubbles is because
you can't go wrong with a gag like that. That just
He had a gas problem. That's all.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like as far as like stylistically. So you have all these different artists. You have like Chris Saunders, and you have all these different voices. And so, whose job is that to kind of like go, okay, this is what we're going with. This is what we're not going to go with. Is that the directors, or is that kind of, is there a committee that, because there has to be a coherent style to the universe or the world that you're creating, even if it's just for that 2 hours, it has to be consistent. So how does that come about?
It's usually a function of you've cast that character with a lead animator, and that lead animator with your top designer. That you have obviously you have a designer who you probably want the most, who's going to lay this vision over it, inspired by the concept art. But at some point, you have to start locking down these designs. Now it's all CG. It's much easier. I'm not saying it's an easy process, but it's a different process, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, there would be one or two artists who they were just, okay, this is going to be the direction we're going in. Yes, I agree with that. And you bring the lead in, the lead animator. Like that might be Glenn Keane, or at the time Mark Ken. These are animators from that time, right? And between the two of them, you set that look. A model sheet is made. Usually that animator would go in, animate a scene with the look that you decided on, and then you would take poses from it, and make what was called a model sheet. So as a guide, that doesn't mean it couldn't be tweaked.
Right.
But at some point you had to stop because there were 300 or 400 people working on this. So
How many times have you had to scrap a design because it didn't animate properly? Because I have some friends over at Warner Brothers, and I'm not going to name names, but he's a director friend of mine, and he's like, every time I get this guy's designs, like, because he kind of angles the eyes in a weird, strange way. So from a certain angle, it always looks really off, or they look like they're cross-eyed or whatever it is. And he said it's always notorious in his design. So have there ever been any kind of like great people that you'd have to go like, hey, your design isn't really cutting it in as far as actually movement or certain angles, it doesn't really read well?
yeah.
It happens all the time, huh?
Yes.
Easy conversation. A good example, again, this is really dating myself, but
Yeah, I don't want you to
animator leading
to.
for a Jet song, Perfect Isn't Easy. We just decided, wow, it's just we're not getting it. And we gave it to a guy named Glenn Keane. He came up with a different design, and I had to go back to the original animator and, hey, I love you, give me a hug. We're gonna move you to this sequence, and you know, if they're good, they're usually professional as well. This is, you know, you're in it for the long haul. These movies take 2-3 years. You have to be. It's one thing we look for when we hire people. Do they have a sense of humor? Because it's going to get really difficult if you don't have a sense of humor. First of all, you're not going to be very fun to work with. Humor gives you objectivity. Humor gives you the ability to stand back and go, you know what? Don't take yourself too seriously. This is advice I got from Roy Disney. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, there's like model sheets and pose sheets. So basically, like, animators will get an examples of how far they can get with the design. Because, you know, like, you can exaggerate to a point when the character gets out of the model. So normally in big production, I mean, I haven't worked in that many big productions because I live, you know where I live, George. So you know the kind of productions they get here. So that's the thing. Like, you will get a model sheet, will tell you, like, okay, this is how the character looks, but you get a pose sheet which will inform you, okay, if the character is doing this expression, you can take it all the way this far without breaking the model or going off model. So that's one of the things that in big productions you will see. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Sorry.
No, you have to establish that the model sheet had to be locked at some point. Like,
yeah, exactly.
With casting, you can't go into production with that character not set. You're gonna waste a lot of money, and it really adds up. There's just a lot of people who touch this thing.
Right. Before you sign off on a character design, is there like an animation test for that character where you basically move the camera around the character and everything?
Yeah. I mean, at the time you would record a line of dialogue and do some proof of concept scenes. And just can I move this? Can I move this? I'll give you a good example. I directed for Epcot 10 years ago. We redid the Epcot Pavilion at Walt Disney World. I don't know how many of you know this, seen it, done it. The Epcot there's a group of buildings that surround a lake. It's called the World Pavilion. Mexico's one of them.
Yep.
We ended up using the Three Caballeros to tell the story of Mexico.
Mhm.
We had animators who were calling the lead animator, Eric Goldberg, can I animate on this? Because they wanted to touch those characters. They're so well designed. They wanted to be part of the production.
Eric Goldberg. This isn't his work, but he was the key guy on the Genie, right?
Yeah, he designed the Genie. That's Eric Goldberg, right?
Mhm.
Oh, keep going.
No, my point is just the design of the character attracted the animators. There was just you as an animator, you could get into that character and very easily animate it just because how simple the original underlying design is. It wasn't a complicated figure to draw around. The stuff at Bakshi was really hard to animate because it was all figures and orcs and wow, it's really tough to animate.
That's actually, I was going to ask you, is like, what's the like the person you work with, like the character design and everything, where it was like the toughest, like you was like, man, I don't know how we're going to do this.
For me personally, it was animating the character, the boy in Black Cauldron, Taran. The boys are really and women. They're hard to paint. They're hard to draw. You have no geography to grab onto.
Yeah.
There's somebody with a beard or there's something you can start to like. Okay, you can
a young, smooth face that
yeah,
doesn't have
smooth young face.
You can't throw a big cheek angle or a big chin in there because then they're aged.
Mhm.
You'd be a lot easier to draw. Clint, you'd be a lot easier to draw than me. I mean, you know,
You're a cartoon character.
Everybody's going for the bearded characters when they have to animate.
Thanks very much, Clint.
Yeah.
Well, can I read this real quick?
Yeah.
Question for Sir George or Disney. What's the atmosphere like working as an animator for Disney on a movie? I guess that would
like what's the crunch time
from production to production, but
yeah,
that's kind of a hard question to ask. It's a group effort. You're on the film for at least production is roughly a year, just as an average. There's a rush to animating, bringing a figure to life on paper. Now it's CG, but on paper, and then seeing that in dailies, and having your peers and colleagues around you, and recognizing, wow, that either works or that doesn't work. You're part of a team at Disney creating a character that might live for years and years. It's pretty heady.
it can be daunting. Is like I know that like the little bit of work that I've done just on 3D animation, stuff like that. You like were there any times where you're like sleeping at the studio and like just like almost camping out there trying to like get that last crunch time done? Because we've all heard of like all kinds of horror stories about stuff like that's happened where it's like they're like I know like Tippett Studios, they used to have a thing where it's like there's 23 days left.
It's a production like you've got finite, it's the wrong word, but you've got a hard date. It's kind of open. You've made changes during it, so those have to be accounted for. You've had to find additional dollars for it, and you're down to the wire, and it becomes a trade. I had a great producer who goes, if you want this, you've got to give up this. Does this really mean that much to you that you're willing to spend X dollars to transfer from here to here? Because you're going to lose something. You want to make that trade or not? Fair question. Absolutely a fair question.
right.
Deadlines drive us, don't they? No matter what we're
Shift
doing.
In some cases, no. You know what? That's too high a price.
Yeah. So like when you would do like the dailies, like is that when they basically like, okay, we don't have enough time to do this. We got to cut this scene. We got to change this and shorten this or remove
just
that.
a weekly review of whatever the animators were generating. The question you're asking is really more on the story side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We really didn't need this sequence, and you realize it belatedly. You're midway in production, like, wow, you know what? We built a story reel. Do you guys know roughly what this is? It's sketches set to scratch dialogue, scratch music, playing in real time. You can see the entire movie. You play the entire movie, so you know ahead of time going in What are going to be the most effects driven? What are going to be the hardest personality sequences? And you might get halfway into the movie and go, wow, you know what? We don't need this. This is just where you start screening it for people. And we would always try and screen it for people who had nothing to do with the film, like production people or the secretaries or security. Like,
Right.
this movie makes sense because that's what you're making the film for. You're not making it for you. You're making it for, well, you are making it for yourself, but it has to be clear.
Right.
Be very clear about what the film
For
is.
mass consumption. Yeah.
And not, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's entertainment. Great.
Well, that's the purpose of it, right? I mean, if you're not entertaining people, getting people into theater, even us on a smaller scale doing comic books, it's like you sit there and go over your final. We've all done this. You know, you get a couple of pages and you go, this scene is too long. This scene isn't long enough. Why is this scene even in here? You know, you thought it sounded great in the developmental stage. Then when you actually put it down and you're looking at it, going, this is completely unnecessary, and it slows the plot down. So out it goes, no matter how much you may love it,
How much
want that honest
reality?
feedback.
Yeah, how much reality starts hitting like towards the end of a production? Because I've heard some pretty crazy stuff. I think it was on Roger Rabbit. Like the story goes, pretty much every animator in Hollywood worked on that film because it was just went down to the wire. They had to get the movie done, and so it was just kind of all hands on deck. So how often does that happen? I would hope not often, but it happens. It used to happen in comic books, but like in the old days. But in the newer days, it happened a lot more, where like bad schedules, people not really being realistic with deadlines and things like that. So, how often did that happen? In productions that you had worked on before, where basically they would be making all kinds of crazy decisions last minute, either to save time or money or, that type of thing.
To be honest, it didn't really happen that often.
Good.
The team at Disney and wherever I've worked have been pretty responsible and had gone through it before. Yes, there's crunches towards the end. You could be in post and equipment goes down or whatever, but the last 6 months of the features I've worked on were always, we got to get this done. You know what? We got to start just moving stuff along, or you have animators who are very slow. Maybe it needs to be recast. Maybe we have to start with somebody over it. They're tough decisions you make along the way, and you can't anticipate. But I can't say they were disasters. They're just it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
I do paintings on commission. You reach the end. Chuleta. I've got a month left to finish this. Only Pedro knows what chuleta is.
Dude, that's a very Panamanian expression.
I can't believe I use that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Chuleta means.
We have no
pork chop,
idea what
guys.
you said anyway.
What does it mean, Pedro?
As soon as he said it, I watched Pedro, though.
Okay. Chuleta means pork chop, and when a Panamanian says chuleta, it means like, God damn it, or damn, like, I'm late. So,
But was there, now I do have to ask him that, was there ever like something you worked on and then like you just put your heart and soul into it, and then at the last second they just said, yeah, kill it?
Well, let me answer it a slightly different way. I was the first director on Lion King. Some of this I went over, I think, with Pedro. And I wanted to take the movie in a more naturalistic direction. We went to Africa. I was born and raised in Panama. I felt strongly about using local actors, local musicians, and combining it with Disney storytelling. I felt, wow, this would be a real, to one of the questions earlier, a real kind of like a breakthrough, but a breath of fresh air. And about a year and a half into it, I was taken off, and I moved to Walt Disney Imagineering. And it was probably the hardest thing. It was tough. It was really tough. The movie went in a very different direction. Great. The movie looks great. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's unbelievably entertaining and emotional and everything. Not the movie I started out to make. That's just the way it goes. It's a business,
Yeah.
You talked about like you worked your way up, and you mentioned like being in the right place at the right time, but you got yourself all the way up to being the director of Oliver and Company. And like when Oliver and Company came out, like how was that for you? Like the fruition of not your whole career, but like you like worked your way all the way up through all this animation, and then to direct this movie and have it come out. Like, I would love to hear a little bit about that, because that's just kind of like everybody kind of wants to accomplish a goal, and that seems like a pretty impressive goal.
What did you wear on the red carpet?
Yeah.
I think I had a jock strap and
You were one of the original streakers.
I was way ahead of my time. Hey, it was an unbelievable rush. I'll never forget it. The opening in New York with Billy Joel and Ron Howard came to the opening. Man, who gets? All I could think of was, man, who gets this opportunity in their lifetime? Like,
exactly.
Wow. I mean, I was insufferable for about a year.
There's no living with George, right?
No. I was just like, oh man, don't even call him. He's such a
Somebody peel my grapes.
Somebody's a diva.
And if he shows up at your door with a jock strap on, don't even open the door.
Unless there's a red carpet involved.
No, it was a very, very. It was an unbelievable experience. Wow.
Yeah. Was there more than one? Because sometimes there's more than one red carpet, right? It's like East Coast.
I literally read it, but yeah, there were several events for the opening of the movie in Manhattan. Yeah, and then an opening here in Los Angeles. I mean, we were like animators who worked. I never thought this was going to happen. I started as an animator at Hanna-Barbera. Like, it was a trade. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be. It's just one thing sort of led to the next. It was a trade. I figured, you know what? This is like any other trade. If I can learn this, I could probably make a living at this for a good, 30, 40 years, hopefully.
Directing movies, I'm sitting here drawing Barney Rubble's toes, man. Come on. But
Hey, don't start on those. That was a tough one. The mama's his toes was like.
You had to animate feet, man. I mean, hands is bad, but you had to animate feet too.
Rob Liefeld's nightmare, dude.
Oh.
You start to have Vietnam flashbacks when you start missing toes.
Too many toes.
How difficult is it once I've got a friend, my roommate from college, who went to film school together, and he directed film, and then it was like, I think 8 years before he got to direct his next film. And there was a variety of reasons, obviously involved in every situation, but you direct Oliver and Company. So what does that mean in terms of for your next project? Are you in a position at that point at Disney where you can sort of like put something together, or do you just kind of fall back in line and wait for something to come up? I mean, how does that work exactly?
In my case specifically, I wanted to do Lion King. It was in development very, very, very early on. It was called King of the Jungle. And I just knew, man, I really, really would love to direct this. It was set in Africa. I'm from Panama. I just had this vision of where I wanted to take it, but it wasn't ready. And I was asked, hey, Prince and the Pauper, here's a script, read it.
Oh.
And this is the Mickey Mouse thing, right? The Mickey Mouse. Yeah, okay.
They wanted to release it with Rescuers Down Under to package it. There was a feeling that it would just be more bang for the buck. And I didn't want to do it at first. I was like, come on, can I at least get into development? I had to wait. You're part of a large team. There's other people who are also waiting for movies, and they want to direct. And hey, fair enough, Right. And I resisted. Finally, the head of the studio at the time goes, Peter Schneider, look, just put the reels up. In other words, put the animatic up. All right, I'll do the animatic. And you know what? I have to say, it sort of grew on me, and I made it my own. But once I got into the animatic, and I said, all right, I don't want to hand this off. I want to finish this. So I ended up directing it. And then moved on to Lion King.
So that was Prince and the Pauper that you did the animatics for, and
and directed. Ended up directing.
Yeah.
It's great fun.
Do you ever because within comic books, it's usually, you're only as good as your last job. So word of mouth, that type of thing. Is that pretty much the same in animation, or do you have agents? Like I would imagine, like once you direct, I mean, are there people that represent you, or do you still negotiate all your deals and do all that stuff yourself?
I had representation for about 3 or 4 years. And to be honest, I don't think it was really a good fit. I wasn't really getting much from it. You really don't have the leverage that you might think from the outside. You're part of a team. you're directing, but you're part of a larger team making these films. And
Yeah, I figured as much. Yeah. That's pretty much how it is in comics. Like
same thing.
it's whatever. It's like the opportunities that come up. You usually don't have too much say in what you do next. It's like there's an opportunity. It's pitched to you, and you either take it or you don't. And usually, if you want to work, which we're all pretty much humble, artists, you take it. You take it, and then you make the best out of the assignment that you have. Some people just think, like, I hear them with actors and stuff too. They go like, "Why did he take that job?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, he wanted to work. He had to feed his family. Like, how many opportunities do you think like people really have? Like, like I guess if you're like top of the food chain, you're Tom Cruise or something like that, you can create your own opportunity and your own projects. But most of us are just kind of, going with the flow and hoping that, if our last job was up here, then at least our next job will be equal that, if not better than that. And then just keep moving forward and, keep challenging yourself that way.
No, I think that's absolutely the right attitude. And I really feel strongly that it doesn't make a difference what medium you're in. These are universal rules of like, you're only as good as your last specific piece that you've done. I'm only as good as my last painting. I'm directing now these small shorts. I'm gonna do a good job on it, regardless of so what? You worked on Oliver and Lion King. Who cares? Like, that's right. What are you doing now? How good are you now? I've had to learn all the digital tools, LumaFusion on the iPad. Like,
Nice.
how am I gonna edit now? Learn motion. I had to generate some effects for something I was working on, and to show the effects people in Taiwan, this is what I wanted. I had to learn these tutorials in motion. I couldn't afford After Effects. I wasn't going to pay for After Effects. Adobe, sorry, I have a thing about Adobe.
So what are you working on now? Like I mean, because this is all past resume. I think we got a pretty good idea of who you are and what you're about. So where are you at now?
I'm a consultant for Imagineering.
Ooh.
And I haven't worked for them since the pandemic. I did a portrait for them of a former chairman, and occasionally I'll get a call for gag sessions or boards or just like situations where can you punch this up? And I paint. I sort of lead a parallel life. I direct small animated projects outside, working with a group in Vancouver that does it. It's called Flyover Canada. If you guys want to look it up, it's like Soarin' in California. You fly over footage. It's like you're on a kite. Cool. And so whenever there's animation, we comp an animation. I board, usually design, and direct the animation that goes with it, and then we comp it.
Oh God, this is gonna give me motion sickness.
I have a hard time watching it, right? Because we had to preview. We couldn't get into the theater to preview scenes, so we had to wear Oculus headsets. And
oh Jesus!
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is like VR stuff, man. It's like
I had to rip the table.
Yeah, I hear like Eric Gold. Is it Goldberg? He's kind of he comes in and works with young artists and does stuff for Imagineering too, doesn't he now?
To be honest, I'm not sure what he's doing. I know he was still active at Feature Animation months ago, but honestly, I don't know.
Because he went over to DreamWorks and worked there for a while, right? And then came back to Disney recently, I think. He's so freaking good.
He's one of 5, just unbelievably talented, and they're just unbelievably good.
Yeah,
we're gonna learn. He did a project with me. We directed something for Tokyo. It was the genie with a couple characters, CG, on a stage, interacting with a live actor on stage. So to get the sight lines lined up, and he directed a CG version of the genie, never been done before.
Wow!
And he directed it. He was the animation director. I was the overall director, but he was the animation director. And watching him work with animators was, move a frame here. In that case, it's milliseconds. So you're dealing in seconds. Right. Frames.
Yeah. I remember the last thing I saw him on. It was, I think it was it Moana? He did the animation for the tattoos, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and that I don't know if he did it digitally or if it was all hand done, but he was brought in to do the animation.
That's
on
right.
that.
Right. I'm
That's
not
a lot of
sure
fun.
how it was done.
Oh well, right now you can do like classical animation digitally. So there's software developed like Toon Boom, and you're using the same techniques. You're just not using paper anymore. But I don't want to say it's the same because you don't do this. You don't flip.
No,
paper.
but Pedro, you and I talked about this. It's the principles.
It's the principles.
These are just tools. If you don't know
Mhm.
what you're doing with animation, we talked about this in Panama. You wait, follow through, secondary action, and
Mhm.
timing. The tools are irrelevant, really.
Yeah.
So that actually brings up an interesting question, because that one of our chat viewers was asked earlier, is they asked, how do you feel about AI fill and animation with hand-drawn keyframes, which is something new, right?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? How do I feel about AI?
How do you feel about AI fill in animation with hand-drawn keyframes? Basically, they've created a program where, and this is something that I think Adobe was part of, because like the whole tracking of every line stroke that someone does. Basically, they'll draw the keyframes, and then the AI will fill in
The in-betweens.
the in-betweens.
That's called tweening.
Mhm.
It started with Flash, and the things like you can control the tweens, and you can like favor one key or the other.
Right.
But acting is lost. It's really hard to when you're going into like real, like trying to act in your animation, using that kind of like tools, like they just fall short.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like especially if you're doing like a facial animation.
Yeah.
Like how is the AI going to determine that?
Exactly.
Like this is something I've just heard about, and I'm like, I don't even know how that would work. It's like, have you had any experience with this?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
No. I want to answer it a slightly different way. There are two topics here. One is AI, or if that's an entirely different sort of field, like because we're dealing with this, and I know people at this on the lot who are working with how do we get AI into the parks, and the other is just character animation done CG, and for me as an animator and director, the tools are so much better now to be able this range of subtlety that you can get in the face. I think I mentioned it to Pedro in Panama.
Yeah.
The film Zootopia, the performances, any of them, the range and subtlety of the performances now that you can control because you're not worried about line width or jitter as animating.
And also, you don't have to worry about the style guide because it's a wire frame that you're pretty much animating a puppet.
It's a model.
Yeah, it's a model. So
but that model still went through a concept phase where the same conversation had to be had.
Yeah.
How big is the nose? How big are the eyes? Where are the ears?
No, but I mean, as far as the animation, you have a core
correct.
form to work from, and then you're not building it from scratch. Like
but there's an element called rigging. And basically, facial rigs have gotten way better from where they started. Like if you see like the beginning of CGI animation, like when Something Much came out with Tony DePeltry. If you haven't seen that short, it's a guy playing the piano with a very weird face. And this is like the beginning where people were like programming in DOS, and you see what's happening now, where you have basically all the muscles represented with bones within the facial rig. You have complete control. But designing and getting like the character to be look appealing, it takes from the process that needs to be like before. You have to design everything and do the model sheet and do whatever. You model it, you rig it, and the principles are the same: overlapping action, follow through, silhouette, like all the things that you learn in classical animation, they translate to CGI or to any new tool you use.
Right.
And that's the thing. If you keep the spirit of the teachings of basically the story of what animation is, you should be fine.
But based on that, are there ever going to be any more superstars, George? Are there ever going to be, any of these guys that really stand out? Since you basically are animating kind of a wire puppet, are those days gone?
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. That's really a good question because it's an entirely different. There's another generation now working. They're really, really good, and I watch these movies and I'm blown away with their performances. I don't know them. Yeah, I'm not involved that much anymore with the studios and stuff. So, but it's a fair point.
Do the stars now become the character designers as opposed to the animators then? Potentially?
I don't think so. You know, there's so many people who touch a character on the way up from the concept people, so you have to share the accolades all the way up.
Yeah.
That animator's only as good as that original design to some extent as well.
Mhm.
And I don't think the way I see it, animators are not supposed to be famous. Because, I mean, if I say Glenn Keane, like a couple of people say, like, oh yeah, and that's like, to me, it's one of the best animators in the world. But the process goes through so many hands that in the end, the product is and basically the voice actor.
Well,
is
Walt
the star.
Disney used to actually promote those guys like Mark Davis and stuff like that, and Ollie and Frank and Ward Kimball and all those guys. So they were almost like branded right alongside. I'm sure there were other really, really talented people in the company there, but those were the guys that were really like they were like Tom Cruise. They were like they were actors. They were big names, and I always remember that. And then like the second and third wave of people.
Art, we have another animator star.
Yeah, Jose just shut up. I was gonna say, man, hail, brother.
Jose Garcia's in the chat. How you doing, Jose? DreamWorks designer, animator.
Yeah, good work.
Yeah, Luminovox, awesome looking project.
Yeah. Well, I want to show George's paintings, and then we can wrap it up. I'm so God, we're so blessed. We're so it's amazing to have George on the show. So I want to show what he's doing now, and I think this is the dream of every artist when they get older, just to kind of draw and paint for themselves. You know what I mean?
While we're looking at this, I have a question for George. What would you think about maybe taking and making an art book out of this stuff and crowdfunding it?
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, Pedro suggested that as well. When
very good idea.
It's a thought. I'd never really considered it, and it's actually a really good idea.
There's a couple of guys who know a little bit about crowdfunding.
Yeah,
and would be really excited to give you all kinds of tips.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I'm sure you've got like some of the animation cells that you've painted and things like that, the drawings and stuff you're talking about. Just like putting down like a compilation book of like different phases and stuff. Like this. This is cool. Like I really dig this.
I would love to listen to George talk about these paintings because these are amazing.
Yeah.
To be honest, this is a painting I never got to work. I appreciate all your comments, and I'm just going to have to just tell you this. And I sent it to a painter who worked at Disney with me. He was actually the art director in Oliver and Company. He became a fabulous painter and really amazing. I go, I can't figure out what's wrong with this. And he goes, you have two focal points. Not clear what the painting is about. Is it about the merry-go-round? About the underside of the castle with that kind of lighting? But he was right. I struggled with the painting, but thank you. I'm glad you all like it. I changed my mind. It's an awesome painting. Thank you so much.
Sometimes it's just as interesting to hear what somebody doesn't like about their work as it is to have that perfect work that you're super happy about.
Well, I just want to say this too, George. Like I grabbed a bunch of artwork that was up, but I could only it wouldn't let me download a lot of it. So some of this isn't like the stuff I really wanted. Like there was just so much work. So this is the stuff that was actually high res enough that I could share it with. So I don't want you to think like, oh, Art doesn't have any taste. He didn't pick my good paintings. There were so many of them. So these were like the best paintings I could find that I liked that I could actually share. You know what I mean? Because
no problem. You are forgiven.
Pretty. Thank you. These were pretty low res. I liked all the Panama Canal stuff that you painted.
Please, George, can you please elaborate on like how you were commissioned to paint basically like the new construction of the canal?
Oh yeah.
By the way, Alex actually, if you do decide to do an artwork like that painting with the two, like with the carousel and the castle back, turn it into the book cover so that both of the vanishing points are separate from each other.
See one on the back and one on the
Yeah,
front.
one's on the back and
You
one's
do
on the
like the
front.
back
Yeah.
and front cover. Yeah.
That's actually a really, really good. That'll solve this painting.
That's a problem solver right
Yeah,
there.
there you go, man.
I have 2 fabulous paintings. What's your problem? Get out.
You're
There.
I got it off my back. What is that?
You're welcome, George. This chat is the best. Yeah.
I use Procreate or a Sketchbook Pro to rough out my paintings ahead of time now, before I commit to canvas. That it's just so much easier to work out the value structure, the design, and the overall color key to it before I spend any time on a canvas. I learned the hard way. You get in the middle of these big 24 by 48 canvases, and it's like anything. You're in the middle of a comic book. You just lose your way. Like, why did I start this? And
Well, that's what the like I was talking about earlier, like the color work in this is what really
thanks.
got me, because I suck at doing any kind of color stuff. So when I see someone that's like a master at it, it's bonkers to me.
you know what? I use a very limited palette of colors. This is all value. This is all light darks. If you really look at this, it's not a lot of colors. It's 6, 7 colors in there. That's it.
There you go. Well, that's that's what I'm saying. Like someone with that kind of knowledge about it can do that. It's just like I said, like my eyes just traveling all over this thing.
Yeah, thanks. I had really good teachers at Disney who stressed value first, value before color. The lights and darks before the color. And I generally went that way. If I'm having problems in color, it's not a color issue because that's subjective. It's a value or design issue.
Yep.
So the value is kind of like you have your foreground elements there, and they're a little bit more heavy color, a little bit more harder edge, and then as it recesses back, it's like it's simplified and more grayed down. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
The value is the light and dark. So the figures on the foreground have the strongest contrast between light and dark. But the background buildings, the value difference between the buildings in that sky, they're not that far apart on a value scale. If you lay it out like a chart down.
Okay.
Does that
Do
make sense?
you do any of this monochromatically so you can really zero in on your values and then add color? Or you do that at some stage in the
Yes.
yeah.
I will do value studies. If I know a piece is going to be complicated, I'll do a value study first. Just work in black and white and just nail the underlying. You guys do comic books. You guys know this intuitively.
Yeah.
I don't know crap.
Neither do I, but I just pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
As if fake it till you make it.
That's the one.
Yes, it still works.
That's cool,
as a
man.
value study.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, man. It's like it's hard for me to wrap my head around some of this stuff.
It's all about the lights and darks because your eye is more sensitive to lights and darks than it is to color. We just have less physically. There's less. What is it called? There's rods and cones in the back. Anyway, someone explain this to me.
Oh, the way your eyes work?
No, dude, you start.
Yes, correct. Physically, the way the eye is structured, we are more sensitive to lights and darks. It's the reason we see at night. So the human eye, the viewer, is more attuned to contrast than they are to saturation. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, you start talking science, you're going to lose everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's an excellent way to put that. I love that.
I got it.
I didn't.
Like the values here are too close together. I would redo this. I'm not happy with it. It's just kind of all flat.
I love this.
I like the fact that the engine stands out from everything else.
Well,
I don't know, I guess
never
I'm just
mind.
dumb.
This painting is an awesome painting, and I can't believe I
George, we're trying to sell your art book here.
Come on, man. You gotta get with the program, brother.
Come on, man.
I'm so clueless.
I've done 10 minutes.
Yeah, do it.
Get with it. Man.
But
We'll help you. Yeah.
See, I really dig this.
I don't think we ever got to answer the Panama Canal.
Yeah, I spent 9 years painting scenes of the construction of the Panama Canal expansion. Panama decided in 2006 that the canal needed to be widened and expanded for larger ships. I heard about it. My wife suggested it, and I pitched the idea to the government of Panama. Let me do paintings of the construction from start to finish. I'll donate my paintings, cover my expenses. They were great. And I started in 2007 and I finished in 2016. and I did about 40, 42, including studies, paintings for them, which now belong to the government of Panama.
Yeah, that's the
They
time.
don't
That's
like
the
you
time
to
where,
download them.
yeah, that's the time where we met, George.
That's correct. On one of my trips, I would go to Panama about twice a year and paint on location, do small studies on location.
Yeah.
Take photographs.
That's how you know George is a true artist, man. He's not thinking about money. It's like every other is like, Brand, you got to learn how to market
I'm
yourself.
so above money.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about money. I just never have any. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You think about
None
it,
of
but you
us are
don't get it.
above money. Yeah.
Well, stick with us, George. We'll make you some.
I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
I was still working at Walt Disney Imagineering full time, so I would do this, take breaks, fly to Panama, spend a week, come back.
Wow.
And
That's
then
cool, man. It's having the dedication and the discipline to do a project over that many years
Yeah.
is just.
I mean, when I met him, like, okay, so I was a member of this theater called the Theater Guild of Ancon. Like, I was like the lights guy, but I already have like the animation school, and they told like, hey, a Disney director is in Panama. I was like, sure, and he's part of the theater. Like, you need to meet this guy. And I was like, oh, okay. So I mean, I didn't believe it. Then they showed me like a little palm tree, and so like, dude, that looks like a Disney palm tree. Yeah, he made that. He made that. Like, he's coming. So they're hyping this guy, and I'm expecting, I don't know, like Dali or something. I was like, and who are you?
Yeah, I'm sorry I disappointed you.
Oh, dude, no, George Scribner is so down to earth. It's like, oh, so you're animating? Cool. It's like, dude, I'm just a monkey who draws. Come on. He's like,
Disney guy. Keys to be in the right place, right time.
Yeah, and then he came to my school. He talked to my students, like just giving like, and he basically gave me a very good pep talk. Because I mean, being where I'm at, it's really hard. Because I mean, I was like spreading the animation gospel, and nobody was really listening. So when a Disney director comes into Panama, like we did an event, like he didn't charge me a dime. I invited like all the colleges of Panama to come to my school. Like, hey, this guy's giving a lecture. Like, it completely changed my profile. And I mean, I'm eternally grateful to George. And dude, like I asked him if he could join us today, and he graciously accepted. So, George, I owe you a club sandwich or something, dude. Like, I'm.
Hey, mándame un poco de chimbiling y ya.
Yeah, tengo que tirar con salve. So yeah, dude, we're gonna crowdfund you a book, George. Like, well.
I told Pedro just.
I do agree with everybody about the book, and I think part of the book should be your story, because what your story, what the whole story is risk. You went to LA, said I need to do this, and without that one risk, taking that risk, this is everything. Like, everything comes after that.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
The art book could be called Risk.
Yeah.
Risk.
Wouldn't I be sued by the game company?
Just change the logo font.
Just call it life. Real small. It's like life is, and then risk.
Well, I've enjoyed your work in the past. Thank you so much for entertaining all of us. Thank you for your time tonight.
This was fun.
We greatly appreciate it. And like everybody was saying about an art book, if you're ever thinking about doing that in a serious way, connect with us again. Because I've been crowdfunding for about 4 years now. So I don't work for Marvel Comics or DC Comics anymore. I pretty much just do my own thing. So I create IP, and then I crowdfund them, and then I create, the project. So there's some big success in it, and we can help if you need that. If not, I mean, I'm sure you'll be.
I've been working on a book on how to paint based on the teachings I had at Disney, so that could be a vehicle for this. Thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Thanks.
So great listening tonight. Very, very grateful.
Yeah. Does anybody have a quick parting shot to like?
I want to make one. I said this to Pedro when I was in Panama. There were people who helped me. I'm super appreciative of the mentors I had. And, when I was starting, I was in my mid-20s, and I now do, like Beto was saying, I didn't charge them. How could I, there was people who didn't ask me any money, and you give it back. I'm 70 this year, and, you reach a point, it's kind of time to give back. I taught classes at the Museum of the Canal, where my show just opened about a month ago. I didn't charge them. I did a class in Panama about a year ago, donated everything to the children's hospital. It's my time. So,
well, I try to teach my daughter, and she's still pretty young. She's in her mid-20s, but she says, I don't want to be selfish, Dad. I don't want to be selfish. I said, there's a time in your life where it's okay. It's kind of expected. You need people at this point. So you're in your early 20s. But just remember that. Just remember that where you're at. Because then when you get in your 30s, it starts paying off for you. And then as you get older, you start realizing that now you're in a place, you've built this, and now you can give back. And so there's kind of three parts of your life where you're kind of selfish. There's a part where you actually have something, you build it, and then there's a part in your life when you can start sharing it and being generous with either information, money, or help, or whatever it is. And so I'm like you, George. I always try to remember that and try to
that
get
was really
back.
well. By the way, that was really well put. That's great. I think that's great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I just hope she still comes out okay. She's 25 and she lives in California, so we're still a little.
On behalf of California, I'm very sorry, but don't lay it on me, man. Okay. I'm ready to move back to Panama. Are you kidding me?
Are you in California?
I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah. I live in Yorba Linda, Anaheim Hills, and I was born and raised California, and then just maybe the 3 to 5 years before my wife and I left, we were just like, this place is going to hell.
We gotta get the hell out of here.
You guys should all move to Panama, man.
So well, what we did is we took our California money, which apparently anywhere you move in the States outside of like the East Coast, like New York and stuff, you can live pretty well. So we took our California money and moved to Texas, and living a pretty good.
I mean, I moved here because you had to be here when I started my career.
Sure.
You had to be here. Yeah. I talked to Pedro about this. You had to be in Austin.
Now,
everywhere. I'm directing these projects, and the art house is in Taipei, and the art director's in Vancouver. I mean, we're just all over the place. Sorry about the pork chops. Sorry.
That's all right, dude.
Keep throwing those pork chops out there.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that'll be the title of my book. Pork chops.
Pork chops.
Dude, yes. I'm serious, man.
George Scribner.
Dude, put yourself in there, man. That's what it's all about. But this was awesome, man. Like art. I say it every week, man. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, because you guys are the pros. I'm just a fan, and getting to meet people like George is,
thanks,
dude. You can't believe how happy I am right now.
Well, we all have to thank Pedro for making this happen. Thank you, George, for your time.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, George.
My pleasure.
And Aaron, thanks for hanging out with us and making time to come in.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much, George. I appreciate all the great information.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lopresti.
Thank you,
You
guys.
guys have a wonderful evening, and have a terrific weekend. And we'll see you this coming Wednesday for Pontificators. So you guys all take care, and talk to you soon.
Thanks again.